Ladies and gentlemen, please silence your phones and hush your babies. The show is about to start.
Hi everyone, welcome. It's that time of year yet again. Happens twice a year, and it is, of course, General Conference time. I've been a bit busy recently, if you don't know, but I'm still making time for General Conference and to make sure that it gets properly analysed and watched over, and particularly watched so that you don't have to. Now, this is a food-affirming podcast, and as you all know, I do like to eat while I'm live, so tonight's dish is lasagna. Because I haven't eaten yet and I need to eat. So if you see me ducking away to eat some lasagna, if you see me making Peter full screen, you now know my secrets, but just don't tell anyone. Yeah, I am joined by Peter tonight. He's the only one who could be
Hello.
bothered to turn up. No, I'm kidding.
I know, lazy slackers.
But we are here to opine and to discuss what we think will happen at this general conference. And there is some sad news to start this episode off. And that is
Ooh.
with my excommunication from the church, they took my peepstone away. I know. I should have held on to it, but they took it. And as a result, I don't have any suspiciously accurate predictions for you this year. I do have some great predictions still, and I think some of them will be right. But yeah, I'm sorry, guys. If anyone knows where I can get a new peepstone, feel free to reach out, nemothemormon@gmail.com, and I will happily accept any offers of a new peepstone. But if there is an executable file attached to the email, I will not be opening it for obvious reasons. So, with all that out of the way, Peter, how are you?
I'm well, I'm terrible. The bloody children at school have given me the complete lurgy, so I've been coughing up my lungs all week. But so if I disappear, I'm not eating lasagna, I'm hacking up into a bin. But I hope to
Right.
keep it together this evening.
I am trying to eat
Other than
Peter.
that, I'm fine. Well, you know.
No, okay.
No
Well,
one
I'm
made
glad
me
you're okay.
lasagna.
Yeah. I'm glad you're okay. And I'm glad to everyone that's in the chat is here joining us. There is going to be audience participation tonight. So I'll be asking you guys for your thoughts, opinions, and all that sort of stuff as well. And I've collected some of your best comments. So keep a watch out for if your comment comes up and let us know in the chat if that was you. So the big question is who will be speaking tonight? I want to look at the announcement letter to start with, which there's the old one from September. And there's the new one. Now, the new one is distinctly... sorry, that's the new one from September, sorry, and the old one from March. Here we go. It started already. The old one from March is longer because it mentions... it takes up the same number of lines, which is quite interesting, but it mentions that there is construction work taking place around Temple Square and the in-person attendance will be limited. That's gone. So there is no specific limit on who can attend. So it should be for up to full capacity, which I believe for the conference centre is about 22,000 people. So it's a lot. But the question is, will it be full? Will it be full? Will we see some clever video angles to show it looking more full than it is? If there's anyone there on the ground, then yeah, let us know if it is as full or not. But I want to point to this bit here. It said the messages will be published in the Gospel Library app. The last paragraph, messages will be published in the Gospel Library app on churchjesuschrist.org and church magazines for further viewing and study. And it said the same thing in March. But what it says here that it didn't say in March is General Conference provides an opportunity to receive personal revelation as general church leaders give counsel and direction from the Lord. So they're still saying that what they say is direction from God himself, but they are inviting people to receive personal revelation. But as we know, Peter, what trumps what? Personal revelation or what the prophet says?
What the prophet says every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
So,
but then when this prophet contradicts himself, who knows what he's saying?
Well, then,
So,
yes.
yeah,
And your personal
no one
revelation isn't
knows.
allowed to sort it out either at that point. So, it says here, though, that in March, they encourage members to listen to, study, ponder, and apply the counsel and direction given. Whereas now, in September, maybe because they know I'm listening and they've kicked me out, we encourage all to listen, to study, ponder, and apply the counsel given. So I thought it's nothing. It's really nothing. But I thought it was interesting that in the last letter they encouraged members to listen, study, ponder, and apply. This time they encourage everyone. What do you think to that, Peter?
Oh, and they definitely want you to still do your halftime show, I think is
I
what they're
think that's
saying
what
there.
that is, right?
It's
That's
a it's a clear invitation.
Mm.
Yep.
So cheers, Salt Lake.
Oh, bless them.
Anyway, that is how
They're
quickly I can
missing you
waffle on.
already.
They are missing me already, and I'm missing them. But what I'm not missing is staying up really late in the middle of the night, which is why I'm glad to see that yet again the Saturday evening session is just slated for 90 minutes. If you ask Google how long the sessions of General Conference are, all the pages will still say that it's 5 2-hour sessions. However, for the past few conferences, it's been 90 minutes for the Saturday evening session. We were all caught surprised a little bit, weren't we, with the first time that happened? But now it seems quite normal that the Saturday evening session is a little bit.
Well, considering the remaining active membership are mostly over 60 in big chunks of the world, I don't think they'd have all fallen asleep by then. So it's they're just adjusting to reality.
Can we just address a comment in the comments? Should you still be going by the Mormon? Just saying, absolutely, I should. The church gave up their rights to that term when they spent millions of dollars promoting it, and then called that a major victory for Satan. So they don't get to, they don't get to say whether I can or can't call myself Mormon. I've just done a podcast with Jimmy Snow, who Jimmy Snow has a podcast, by the way, where we talked about that, and so I encourage you to go watch that episode. That'll be out soon. Big love, Jimmy Snow. Anyway, yeah, there we go. But the question really not is who will speak, but who will sit. This, interestingly, Russell M. Nelson has since the April conference where he put this post out about him being nearly 100, he hasn't really put many more posts out on his Instagram. I say he, the intern that manages his Instagram hasn't put out many more posts. So they hasn't spoken to this conference in the way he did last time, because last time he talked about preparing for conference and how he was old and all this sort of stuff. But he hasn't. But what has happened is they've all got a bit older. So the combined age of the first presidency of this church is 283 years old.
Wow. The rings of power are doing their job.
Eyring is 91, Oakes is 92, and Nelson is 100 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. They're old. Very old. So this is where the show gets fun. Let's get some predictions out there. And have you got some to report from those who aren't with us tonight, Peter?
Yeah, the slackers, yes. So Julian Heath, who always has brilliant ideas, his first one I thought was really perceptive and important. It is that there'll be no mention of Ukraine or the Middle East. So I can't, I mean, the last time I think a conflict was referred to was around the Gulf War, and President Hinckley kind of gave semi-supportive statements around that. They maybe got their fingers burnt with that. But it is, I think in international affairs, the church has this leadership have an extreme paranoia about upsetting anyone, which is really difficult to do if you're going to be real Christians, because you have to kind of call out the authorities, but then it does endanger your people. So you can understand the hesitation. But
well, no, so a little fact check there,
yeah.
Peter. He did obliquely mention the Russia-Ukraine war when it first broke out, and the church did react in an interesting way that I think is worth just mentioning here briefly. Is what they did is they reorganized the areas in Europe. So we used to have Europe, Eastern Europe, Central area, or Europe area. And then when war broke out, funnily enough, all of a sudden, Europe East changed and Europe Central was created, and Europe North came back. So we got separated from most of Europe, and we were stuck in with parts of Scandinavia, and for some reason, Cape Verde, not sure why, and Portugal. Maybe it's the time zone thing, I don't know. But that's Europe North. And then you've got most of Europe Central, which is Germany, France, Italy, all that sort of lot. Then you get to Europe East. And what the
I'm
church
sorry,
is...
everyone. I've started him off on his geography obsession.
Sorry.
Carry on.
And what the church has done here is they have they've created a sandbox in which they've put Russia and their trading partners. That's what they did in when war broke out in Ukraine. So yeah, that's what they did. They put them in a little sandbox, but they couldn't just put Russia in a sandbox on its own. So they put them in with their trading partners. They put them in with Belarus, with Kazakhstan, and places like that to be managed over, and then managed purely by Russian Area 70s. So there's no General Authority 70s that oversee that area. So that's how the church actually responded. They reorganized their area structure and they pulled Americans out. But in terms of what they said to the public, it was very, very little. Sorry, I'm going to give Peter the full screen so I can keep eating.
So you fool. Yeah, so it is tricky, you know, and it's in a way they haven't really got any great results from sucking up to international dictators who persecute Christians and Mormons. Because you know President Nelson famously announced the Singapore temple and immediately got slapped down by the Chinese government that's not real. I've still not heard
It was
of any
Shanghai temple,
groundbreaking.
not Singapore.
Oh, Shanghai, sorry. Yes, of course, wrong country. I apologize, Malaysia. And the and I don't know, has the Dubai temple got anywhere? I haven't heard anything about that for a long time.
You're making me come back on screen, Peter.
I know,
Right.
sorry.
Yes. The Dubai temple, I have heard some little things about a site. There's no definite site announced, but I think Bednar went back for a visit recently. So there is movement on that, albeit slow. But nothing on Shanghai ever since, like you said, the Shanghai local municipality came out and called it, and I quote, wishful thinking of the Mormon Church in America.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so it's just this general thing of they're very much in their bubble. They don't have the courage to speak up about international affairs, although in so many other areas they kind of pontificate as if they are world players and you know have all this control and influence in the world. So I don't know. Maybe there'll be some generic
Well,
appeals
they
for
call
peace.
Russell Nelson a global faith leader, don't they? They use that
Yes.
title
Yeah.
on him a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of the prophet, JC has
Yeah.
just said, please add Oaks to the Jesus Joe Russell tally. The problem is it ruins the flow of the name. Jesus Joe and Dallin.
Oaks. Dallin.
Jesus Joe and Oaks. Jesus Joe and Oaks and Russell. We'll work something out. I think we should keep a tally of it just to be sure. Because he is the shadow prophet now. As we get to, some people predict that he will be getting a lot of airtime over this weekend, which I think is true. I think he will be. Carry on, Peter. So you've got what are the predictions have we got from Julian?
Okay, so also they won't say we've got enough money now, so don't worry about your tithing, which they may come to regret. They'll probably will say something critical about people that leave the church. So there's a lot of speculation since Dallin Oaks put out kind of with him headlining it and being quoted some training for stake presidents and bishops online, basically telling them to have a lot more church discipline councils and have a higher percentage of those result in actual discipline. Everyone stop being so merciful and forgiving and tolerant. And also saying that when people return to activity, if you know, if they've kind of used being away in his world's view to dodge accountability rather than just being grateful they're back and welcoming them home as the prodigal son returning and slaying the fatted calf like Jesus taught. What our bishops and stake presidents should do is check whatever sins they were doing during and before they left and put them straight into the disciplinary process so that they don't come back and contaminate everyone. And set a bad example for others, which I'm sure will go down wonderfully and result in waves of reactivation across the world. Yeah.
Ruth is
So
just throwing a prediction in.
yeah.
She says, and I want to get your thoughts on this, one last desperate talk from Wendy as she prepares to sink into oblivion. So that's the idea that her relevance will obviously dramatically drop once Russell Nelson passes away. Of course, because it's a patriarchal institution and she holds no position other than being his wife. And she's been vocal and outspoken for the wife of a prophet in a way that other wives of prophets haven't been.
Yeah. She's
But
featured a lot on
still,
the church's own podcasts and things like that. Has she
But
ever spoken in general conference though?
well, that is the
I
question.
don't think she has.
I don't think she has. Do you reckon
No.
she will?
That's interesting. I mean, she's definitely a headliner on the regional talks, which they then erase from the internet straight away,
Of
like
course,
their
yeah,
address
the
to Europe on the world tour. in which she was as sane and rational and calm as usual. Not. And
Something about
yeah,
exclamation marks and question marks, right?
yes, that
Yeah,
one. But
that one.
great start for a great idea for a book. So yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, the big kahuna everyone is waiting for is someone leaking that someone else might already be involved in their polygamous marriage, who is still alive. But yeah, so that's something to look out for. Also, they might say something about sacred temple design. So lots of people have been predicting the proclamation on the temple spires.
Yep.
I think you could certainly look for the kind of metaphors and language about I don't know, the stuff they've been telling the poor Mormons in the areas where they're breaking local planning rules to plonk a temple with a tall spire where they shouldn't, and that they're meant to sort of religiously extol poetically the spires of the temple lift our eyes towards the heavens. And I've been working on
Peter,
a
you
Jim for
lift my
Sunstone.
eyes towards the heavens.
Oh,
You're
thank you.
6'7". So
Oh,
yeah.
that's it, little baby Nemo. Um, and I've um, and I've been, the Book of Abraham points Mormons to the actual cosmos. God is a real person living in our universe near and what sounds like a supermassive black hole called Kolob, and governs the galaxy, and which is wonderful. This great mind expanding stuff about where God is out there in the universe. But the language for the temple stuff is like, oh, we've come back to pagan sky gods then. So, literally standing on the ground on Earth, if we look up
So
into the
he's in the
clouds and there's a
clouds. Yeah.
spire, it's pointing us to where Jesus lives on those fluffy clouds up there next to Zeus and Thor. And I mean, it's like, and then I thought, hang on, this is literally the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
They've come for, they've gone through Pharisee apostasy from Jesus's time, doing everything that Jesus criticized the Pharisees for. And now we're back to old school patriarchal era, Old Testament apostasy. They're obsessed with that their temples have to literally touch the clouds
Yeah.
to get you to heaven. You couldn't make it up.
No.
So yeah, the proclamation on the spire, if it
Okay.
goes whole hog,
Yep.
or lots of language using that metaphor to kind of justify. Still, they've just announced another temple plan somewhere where it's not zoned for high buildings, and they want a high building in California. Ugh. Yeah, so
Bakersville,
there's
I
that.
think that one is. Or Bakersfield,
Yeah,
sorry.
and also, finally from Julian, they won't say that two of them are going on holiday to Jerusalem and might not come back. I mean, now would be a great time to visit if you want to be a martyr.
Don't
Yeah.
explain that reference to the audience just for those that don't
It
get it.
is. Revelation prophesies that there'll be two great prophets or apostles in the last days who will testify in the streets of Jerusalem for a really long period of time, and then they'll be killed and their bodies will lie in the streets.
So, but hang on.
If I
There's
remember
the
right.
first problem
What?
there. They have to be
Oh,
great prophets and apostles.
oh well.
And the current lot we've got a mediocre at best.
Yeah,
there you go.
maybe,
That's
but
the kind
they
of
think they're
zinging
great.
content you can expect
Woo!
now that I've been excommunicated.
Yeah.
Whoa.
The gloves are off, Nemo. He's coming out fighting.
hold your horses.
They're not as great as they think they are.
Ruth Heath just threw another one out there.
Ruthless.
8-year-olds will be allowed to do baptisms for the dead in the temple.
Oh,
The moment they've been baptized themselves, they can then just start
interesting.
baptizing on behalf of others.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not an announcement for conference, maybe something just to be snuck into the handbook during one of its 6-monthly revisions.
Yeah, that is a cool idea.
Do
you remember what Sarah said? Sarah sends her apologies. Sarah Delaney from 21st Century Saints. We've had terrible traffic in Britain this month. We made it to Nemo's excommunication by the skin of our teeth, via various country lane traffic jams. So she's trapped on a motorway. What were her predictions? I've completely forgotten.
That would be awkward if I'd also forgotten, wouldn't it?
It would be.
It would be.
It was sexist,
even. Some may say.
Mm.
No, she predicted an island temple.
Oh, that
because
was
another
it,
one
yes.
in England would be overkill. They wouldn't do that just yet. And even another one on the landmass of Great Britain, because obviously they're not Scotland. It would have the Welsh feeling incredibly upset, but given that some
there aren't
of
many
the
Welsh
American
Mormons
leaders
left,
might not know what Wales is. because
Yeah.
it doesn't have a bit on the flag. They might not know.
Mm.
So
Yeah. And she
yeah,
suggested it would have to be in Southern Ireland, so it's like a
Mhm.
different EU
and
country
we
to the
will
United
come to
Kingdom.
that. We'll come to that
Yeah. Okay.
because I've got a slide on that, and we'll talk about when I was in Ireland.
Mm.
Um, but yes, I'm trying to think what other
Cool.
Sarah's other predictions were.
Mm. Mhm.
But no, I don't think so.
No.
I can't remember.
Sorry, Sarah.
Sorry, Sarah. Should
We've
have been here.
we've we've had a difficult day.
Should have written them down for us. That would have been the
Mm.
key. Anyway, right, cool. Let's move on then. Peter, what are your predictions?
Okay. I'm thinking along similar lines. As I said, I definitely think a lot of language around something to do with justifying the temple spies. They're so obsessed with it. I mean, if they got an ounce of common sense, they would stop. Well, like, I can't even with this because not only have they actually taught that the size or spire height of a temple does not matter whatsoever, obviously, yeah, there are all kinds of creative ways to make architecture that works within height zones, or just stop trying to put your temple where you're not allowed to do the height and put them where you can, which is often in the same town. Um, and there's actually quite a good history of temple design, even though they keep erasing the previous generations. You know, Salt Lake Temple, Tabernacle, beautiful, and then destroy them later. Provo and Ogden were really revolutionary in their designs, very sort of groovy 60s architecture, now replaced because, they have no sense of heritage. But, we have a long history of actually adapting really quite stylishly our temple designs to different locations. So there's no reason not to function within those. But since they're obsessed with the high spires and everyone can suck it as far as they're concerned, if they don't want a skyscraper next to them, um, they will have to start, in a sense, retrofitting, like they did creating the family proclamation to retrofit their opposition to same-sex marriage in the courts. So I think
Mhm.
there will be a lot of that. I agree that Dallin Oaks is going to be front and center. Now, he usually, every other conference, I think, he will usually do a talk directly about the family proclamation, and it will have the word plan or proclamation or something similar to that in it. I can't remember if he did one last time, so we might be due another one of those this time. He
Can I
does
throw
it on
something out
the
there about the temples real quick?
yeah, go
I
on.
think
Mm,
it's going to be a game really of how easy are they going to make the YouTube short for me to make? Is it going to be as
okay.
simple as them saying
Hmm.
temple spires are really important, and I'm going to go roll the tape, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
play the clip of Bednar saying it's not the architect. Nelson saying
Mm,
it's not the architecture, it's not the location,
mm,
it's the ordinances inside, and Bednar saying who cares what size the temple is, right? Is it going to be that easy, or is it going to be a bit more
mm,
thinly veiled? I wonder because I feel like they're going to have to make it quite easy because
yeah.
they're going to have something obvious to point to with all
Yeah.
these RLUIPA lawsuits. Anyway,
Mm,
that's just my 2 cents. You carry on, Peter.
yeah.
I'm going to eat more.
Latter-day Digest kind of did a prediction show, and someone sort of just referenced that, perhaps saying, Moksha has said, will they elevate visions of glory to proclamation status? And they were kind of joking about canonizing that. Um, I
They
think
can't because
so
that would
much
tie them too close to the crazies that are
well,
currently
maybe
going to
they like
prison.
that. It
Right?
could be people they'll be like, oh, the crazy murderers are popular. Let's go
Mm.
with that. So that was quite tongue in cheek. Um, the I just think if there is this shift towards, so President Nelson, although in practice has been quite brutal and ruthless about his concept of sad heaven, that unless you get sorted here and now, you will not be
Mhm.
with your family in the next life, and kind of bringing back the TK smoothie, um, where you won't need your genitals. Um, the uh, the he then kind of had this period where the headline was meant to be Dallin Oaks is hugging the people of the historically black college and has been given the Martin Luther Gandhi King Award, and he's breaking this, although they never said it specifically, this history of racism in the church, and making these amazing inclusive statements that of course are complete nonsense, especially when it comes to LGBTQ inclusion. Um, so that kind of put on hold or tempered or was a parallel track to the full-on fundamental conservatism.
Mm.
I think that's going to go out the window now. You know, Dallin Oaks has had enough of that. He's already sowing the seeds in the handbook and with these policy changes for full-on Kimball McConkie Mormonism.
Mm.
And it's going to be grim. And so I think things will come back to the purging. It's going to, you know, he
Right.
wants a purge,
I've seen a lot of people
delusionally,
saying
because,
that,
yeah.
sorry, that they think
Mm,
we thought it was bad under Nelson, but Nelson's made a lot of changes that just aren't really that impactful, right?
no.
He's changed
Mm,
what he'd like us to call the church. He's tried to build loads of
mm,
temples that have ruined the church's PR image
mm,
in a lot of America. He's,
mm,
changed the logo of the church. He reduced church down to 2 hours, right? The changes that Oaks will make are going to be far more impactful.
mm.
I think,
He's ideological.
yeah, and
Nelson is a very simple man, I think. He simply thinks decluttering and dropping programs is always the answer to simplify. But in doing so, he's killed the social life of the church. He
mhm,
killed the activity committees, which were essential. He's overwhelmed the bishops and everyone else with too much to do. They've killed home teaching and visiting teaching. The only accountability they can offer on that now is interviewing the home teachers, which even that is
mm,
really not being done effectively in my ward anyway, and so on, because they just don't have the
yeah,
people. Um, you know, if you actually think of a list of the things that they have accelerated the demise of, it's pretty brutal.
yeah,
And it's not worked. You know, the net result has not been higher activity rates, higher participation in seminary, in real terms, higher numbers of people going on missions consistently.
mhm,
Um, it's higher retention of converts, none of that. You know, President Hinckley's ideology was realistic. He had a
mhm,
positive, I'm a Mormon outlook and PR, program that could have absolutely galvanized the church, where they were putting diversity front and center
mhm,
rather than conformity. And his focus on the threefold mission of the church being, you know, have a purpose, give people a calling, fellowship, have a friend. Um, you know, that focus on retention has all gone out the window.
mm.
They don't even talk about that anymore.
Well, so do
And
do we think one of
yeah,
the ways they could try and keep people would be, as Funky
mm,
007 puts it, to take them back to 3-hour church, to make the church
yeah.
more demanding, not less?
There's not just more demanding, just enough of it to feel you belong to something, to a community. There are so many where they admitted in a couple of conferences ago that since the 1990s, the majority of adult members in the church, early 1990s, have been single, either
Mhm,
never married or divorced. The and every time people I've really noticed in Reddit and other social media, every time there's a conversation about 2 Hour Church, there are a lot of people who are single or the only member in their family who say, this doesn't work for me. I do not have a family at home to do church with,
mhm,
supported by church. I miss the 3 hours. That's my time with my family, with my people. I do. I mean, I'm kind of glad it's shorter now because it's so deathly boring. But it used to be enough time to have a few conversations and start build social relationships properly. Now it's over so quickly. You only kind of get one interval to have
mm.
any chats with anyone. And it's really quick. Um, it's it's had
Yeah,
a
it's
huge
killing the
effect on a lot of
community of the
people.
church
Yeah,
in a lot of ways,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Have you got any other
yeah.
predictions before we get to the viewers' predictions? You have
Not
1 minute.
particularly. All right. So I just think a general crackdown to stern, you know, rule driven, punish the wicked. We're fighting the world. Oakes's whole worldview is I'm at war with the world, and we can do with losing most of our members because we're the holy and righteous ones, and
Mhm,
that's all that matters. Delusional, but he's also getting quite old and frail himself. So I do think he must realize he might not make it to the next conference. So for that reason, I do think, even though he's already been doing it a lot, we could well see him significantly ramping up his input and his agenda being the agenda now via,
Yeah.
while he butters up Nelson and claims it's from him. I think everyone is kind of expecting that to happen now sooner rather than waiting till he's actually president, because
Okay.
he's been doing this for a long time. Yeah.
Let's get to the viewers' predictions, because I
Mm,
agree. I can see some of that.
yeah.
These I asked for predictions from yourselves, your very lovely
Oh,
selves,
wow.
and I'm going to read some of them, and then I want to get some more predictions from the chat. So we'll read through these, and if I spot your prediction in the chat, I'll do my best to
Mm.
put it up. But give me your best predictions in the chat, folks, and we're going to go through some of these that were pre-submitted. So 100 new temples will be announced for Nelson's 100th birthday. Nelson will say it himself in a recorded message. Could you imagine? I
Well,
can't
I
quite.
No, well, it's a step up from what we're now finding out about John Taylor or Lorenzo Snow or whoever it was, who used to be given dozens of wives sealed to him as his birthday present. So he'd go into the sealing room, they'd seal loads of dead people of all ages, including little girls, to him as his wives, and he'd be all excited and happy, and then they'd have a big birthday
Yeah,
cake waiting for him as he
pretty grim.
toddled out of his wedding. Temple's better than polygamous wives, maybe. Things have got a bit
Mhm.
better. Yeah.
Okay, but that's still a
Mm,
lot of cash. Um,
yeah,
Someone says that there will be some
they've
reference to
got
do
it.
not associate with apostates. Read only approved church material.
Mm.
Almost certainly, I would imagine. We'll get
Well,
some
they've
of that.
already done it a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone says they think they'll double down on tithing in response to criticism of tithing.
Mm,
We had a double down on tithing maybe a year ago, so we're due another one.
mm.
Someone saying that Nelson's pre-recorded addresses and or absence. Yeah, I would agree. Lots of people quoting Oakes to get in his favor as he's taking charge, and Oakes talking about following the prophet. Peter, your thoughts on that one?
Um, sorry, I was just
It's the
distracted
bottom one
reading the
on the left
comments.
comment.
Yeah, lots of people.
I'll watch
Yeah.
the comments. You.
Oh yes, sorry. No, actually that was, yeah, definitely one I've seen discussed a lot is that the people to look for, the big brown nosers, are Cook and Anderson. They are always like profusely flowering their praise of whoever's got power, and you can see them shifting allegiance sort of when Monson was dying to President Nelson and sort of bigging him up and being the big cheerleaders. So they are the first to sense the change of power. So you can see yeah, highly likely to be quoting Dallin Oaks a lot. He's the next guy. But I don't know. I mean, they're still doing a lot of brown nosing Nelson. I think they realize they have to kind of keep some momentum around that. I think everyone was basically predicting that Nelson wouldn't make it this far because he looks so frail, and it was very clear that he has breathing problems, and how they'd CGI'd and edited um his sort of broadcast last time, where he's sitting in this completely unrealistically large chair with giant fake digital flowers next to him that were 3 times the size they would be in a real room, as far as I can tell as an artist. Anyway, so it kind of looked like he was actually sitting probably in a hospital chair somewhere, and they were giving him air in between each sentence. But at his birthday, he seemed much more perky. So it may be either they gave him a lot of cocaine, or his back's actually got better and recovered, and he was able to keep standing up and sort of hugging people or being nice to them. So he does seem to have physically had another lease of life. Um, so I don't think, when President Monson was really had it, they were making lots of patronizing statements from the pulpit and turning to him and, we love you. And it was very clear they're all kind of saying goodbye to him. So if we see some of that, that's a sure sign that they think he's about to peg it, bless him. Um, so that's something to look out for. But certainly, yeah, a kind of shift of allegiance to quoting Oakes more is highly likely. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I would agree. Um,
Mm,
Someone says, I don't think it will actually happen, but I would not be surprised if Oakes is named acting president of the church or something like that
mm,
from what's been going on behind the scenes. It seems he's been taking over, and it wouldn't put it past him to make it official, even if President Nelson's hanging on. Now, I think that's interesting because it would be completely
mm,
unprecedented,
mm.
as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Um, And maybe I've
Depends
missed
on his
something in church
ego.
history.
I mean,
It's
he
his ego,
already
but
has the
also
power and he knows it, but does he want everyone to know he has the
the
power?
landmark of
Yeah.
100 is new, right?
Yeah.
That's never been done before.
They
So
can't
at
rain on
any
that
point
parade.
now, he can go, right,
Mm,
I've hit 100. I really
mm,
do want to retire now. 100's
mm,
the new retirement age. If you can make it this
mm.
far, you get to retire. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Has anything that President Nelson has ever said or done implied that he doesn't want to be totally in charge and loving being the president? Of course not. He has not got the humility of the
No,
Catholic
absolutely not.
popes.
No, he will lap up the adulation till his dying
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
absolutely. And then the
There's no way
final
that's happening.
prediction here, before I get to some of the ones in the chat,
Mm.
is to further add salt to your wound. President Oakes will announce that the word of wisdom will be revised to include the prohibition of jammy dodgers. Now, all right,
That's brilliant.
okay. So, of course, I have a jammy dodger right here. Yeah, I'm never without them at this point. Thanks to the vigil at my excommunication, I got given a box full of them.
The post-Mormon communion wafer.
Indeed. So I'm going to go solo for a moment. So this here is a jammy dodger, okay? But you can send me a virtual one that's got a little picture of a tapeir on in support if you become a channel member. It is literally the cheapest way to support what I do. It's the way to make sure that I survive this weekend and am well fueled, etc. It's $1.99 a month just to show your support. That's great. If you want to support more on a regular basis or as a one-off donation, there's a donor box link in the description. But channel memberships are all cool. And the most important thing you can do is subscribe so you don't miss the wonderful general conference content that I'm going to be putting out this weekend, and like this video so that other people get to see this, right? And if Jammy Dodgers don't sponsor me, the amount of Americans that have been importing Jammy Dodgers off the basis of these videos, Burton's Biscuits, we need to have talks, right? So on that note, everyone, support me how you can. Eat a Jammy Dodger in my honor. But liking and subscribing are free, so just do that if you can't do anything else. Thank you very much, everyone. Right, back to the predictions. If I can make this
Can you
work.
just pop up so Ellie and Rue just put one on. If you go back a couple.
One moment, Peter. I'm trying to work
sorry.
this all out. There we go. I'm technologically inept at this point. So a comment from Ellie and Rue, you say?
Yes, yeah, about young women and young men leaders.
Oh, okay.
A bit after that one. Keep scrolling down.
My goodness, people. How much?
I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so young men, young women leaders, the unwritten rules of modesty, tattoos, and piercings in FSY, higher and holier, not permission. So I think that's really perceptive, because as soon as what seems to be Uchtdorf inspired, I don't know, milder, nicer, for the Strength of Youth leaflet went out that dropped all the stuff about direct references to masturbation and not having more than 2 earrings and such nonsense. Immediately after that, last January, the training for all the seminaries and institute staff from the Young Men General President and others absolutely taught the opposite. It immediately was cracking down with literally our young people should be like they're wearing uniforms. And yes, we're telling them they've got freedom to think for themselves about this,
but they should know where that freedom leads.
But they should know it, yeah. And they should talk to experienced, mature, trustworthy members of the church to get advice. And of course, those members of the church have all been raised on extreme modesty culture and slut shaming and all the rest of it. So of course they're going to say, and naturally, there's no way you should have a tattoo. There's no way you should have a second earring. So I really like that point. It's kind of reminding us. And as a teacher of teenagers, I really care about what messaging is being given to the youth, because that's where most of our members leave in their teenage years and young adulthood, because of what the church says and does to them and how much it messes them up, even within those few years. So I think absolutely, there will be, with Oakes never wrote that new Strength of Youth. He'd love more rules and regulations about earrings and stuff. Yeah. So what we've got,
Latter Daily Digest just jumped in and said,
awesome.
Critical thinking will become an excommunicatable offense. It already has.
Yeah.
I think I've proved as much. So
Me too. Yeah.
it will.
Mhm.
You did also,
Yeah.
Peter. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Dean C. Liddell says they think that new scriptures will be announced. I don't know whether that's like a new
Ooh.
physical edition or whether finally the Church Handbook of Instructions will be canonized as the 5th volume of
Yeah.
scripture in the LDS Church. Honestly, on Sunday, a guy behind me quoted the Handbook of Instructions. It's all I've ever heard this guy quote. This guy has given a sacrament talk based off the Church Handbook of
Wow.
Instructions. And he's a nice enough guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Not, whatever. But I think it's a bit
Mm.
much. I don't think it is scripture. But
Oh,
actually, the
they
church
think it
acts
is.
as though it is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is their living scripture. Yeah.
John Lindsay said it will be okay to drink coffee.
It's
And that will be another short that
never
I will then
happening.
put up of that woman saying just 1 cup of coffee will keep you out of such a kingdom. Funky
Yeah.
007's been giving some great comments tonight. You can now pay tithing in donating high value Pokemon cards. I mean, the church will literally take anything off you that
Yeah.
is of value.
Yeah.
If you can ascribe a reasonable dollar value to it, you can probably give it to the church as tithing.
Yeah. They'll
Um,
have it.
Riley Eastman says, bring back One Piece garments. That would be. I mean, have you seen
Ooh.
the pictures doing the rounds of the sleeveless men's garment top?
Oh, yes.
That
Is that
accidentally got
real?
included in someone's shipment. I don't know. I haven't verified that. If people
Bizarre.
could verify that
Yeah.
in the comments, let me know. Because I'd love to know if that is legit, and not just a weird bit of AI generated propaganda. Because we have to watch out for these things now. So I'm not saying it's real, but I have seen the images that are doing the rounds. Ruth Heath thinks they will make a big fuss about the Kirtland Temple again, because not enough fuss can be made of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oakes will announce that the family proclamation will be canonized. That gets predicted every year, and 1 year it will be right. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
1 year, not this year.
I would argue he's already done it, but I think he's
No,
terrified
I
of
think
actual common consent
I
voting. So he's
I don't
announced
think
it.
he has,
It
because he
is
hasn't.
canonized because the apostles signed off on it already.
Yeah, but it's not canonized in the
Yeah.
sense of it hasn't received a common consent sustaining vote, and it's not printed in the scriptures. Imogen Green says something alluding to secret lives of Mormon wives, something extra about covenants or about the worthiness of real members. It would be a bold person to come out and talk about real Mormons, given the way that all that's going online. But maybe they will. I've talked about this a lot recently. We're talking about my excommunication, but ultimately the church gets to decide whether you're in their club or not. So, as authentic an experience as the secret lives of Mormon wives portrays of some women in Utah, and I have no doubt that those women do consider themselves members of the church at the same time as actively violating a lot of the church's standards. Ultimately, the church gets to decide whether that's acceptable or not. In my case, they decided it wasn't. And in their case, they may decide that it's really bad PR to excommunicate a bunch of women and to be seen as oppressive and patriarchal. But when has the church ever let PR get in the way of keeping control of people? When? Someone's talking about the
RFM and
bingo
rock
card.
stars. That's when.
Someone has talked about the bingo card that I used to do. I will try and put together a bingo card for everyone for tomorrow if I can. Let's see. I've been a little bit busy, as I've said, but I'm doing my best. Right. That is all the predictions. So I would like to share with you all now my predictions, which of course are the most important ones. Not really.
But without seer stones this time.
Without seer stones. So this is 100% no seer stones. Ireland Temple is one that I want to talk about a little bit first, because when I was there, Brits in the comments, you'll understand the reference. Americans, please look it up. When they combined the Limerick district in with the Dublin stake, jokes were made calling it the Irish Free Stake. Right? And the entire country is now one stake, and so many members. I sat in Dublin Stake Centre, and so many members were saying, "This is in preparation for us getting a temple. We believe this is in preparation for us getting a temple." The area authorities, although they cannot say, and even if they want to allude to try and sound impressive, they actually don't know. Even they were bigging it up a little bit and giving a bit of a nudge and a wink, right? So
Mm,
the Irish Free Stake may be getting its own temple, and I think it would be
mm,
in the south of Ireland. I think because Dublin stake now that it absorbed
mm.
Limerick district, is quite a hefty stake.
Okay.
Some of the branches
One
within it
stake for
are
a temple.
tiny,
Yeah.
but yeah. At this point, Peter, the rule book is out the window,
Oh, absolutely.
and it would
Well,
have
it's
it would
guaranteed.
naturally
Yeah.
it would
If
naturally
they've had
serve the
to,
Belfast stake as well. Obviously,
yeah,
they would just have to come south of the
yeah,
border.
yeah. If they've had to merge a stake or two districts in the area because of rapidly declining active membership, that's almost a guarantee that they're about to get a
Mhm.
temple. It's what's happened with Birmingham,
Yeah.
and lots of other places. So yeah,
So
reward failure.
there were some major kind of realignments. So I would not be
Mm,
surprised if then they get a
mm,
temple either this conference or next. So
yeah.
don't
Mm.
don't.
Well, my dad's in Cork at the moment,
Okay.
so
And
he
it'll
might
still
be
be a
there
trek from
he might
the
be there to
south.
witness the rejoicing. He doesn't live there; he's
Yeah.
visiting. But
But the southwest of Ireland, it'll still be a good several hours of driving. It can
yeah,
be to get up towards
yeah,
Dublin. But I
yep.
think, I mean, the Dublin or the Dublin Island Temple, I think is what they'd call it. I think the
Mm,
Americans would appreciate that more than the Belfast Northern Ireland Temple, right?
mhm,
Um, so
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
my
think
the Bleakley Mormons come from Bangor near Belfast, so
yeah,
obviously I'm biased towards Belfast.
yeah, I reckon it'll be in the Republic for sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so here are my official predictions. Let's put them nice and big on the screen. Okay. So I think we will absolutely have them talking about the steeple height and the height of temples. Absolutely, they have to. I think to really shore up their position and make sure that cheeky little upstarts like me can't go all the way to Texas and point out just how wrong their behavior is. Oh, Susie Catherine's just sent me money for Jammy Dodgers this weekend. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Greatly appreciated. And speaking of cheeky upstarts like me, I wonder if there will be veiled references to yours truly, myself, to apostates. That's probably just my ego speaking, what tiny, tiny ego I actually have, and any sort of sense of self worth that hasn't been utterly destroyed at this point. Um, may think that, they might just be talking about me, but they probably won't. They're not going to talk about me. They don't want to give me the satisfaction. But I think ultimately there will be references to apostates and not following apostates. And, with Oakes wanting more excommunications, there could even be a talk about the need of removing people's church membership. That is possible, I think.
Mm,
I think they'll be talking about garments, modesty. They might talk about the new styles and patterns, um, because that might have, fallen out into the open by accident. So I think they may end up talking about that. I think we're going to get 10 temples announced, one for every decade of Russell M. Nelson's life. In terms of who could say what, I think we'll get a pre-recorded talk from Nelson. I think we'll get a pre-recorded talk from Holland. Uchtdorf will naturally talk about planes. I only think 3 women will speak.
Sarah said 2. We've remembered another one, Sarah.
Sarah
She
said 2.
predicted 2
Yeah.
women speaking. She said you won't hear any women pray, and they'll get the 2 out of the way early because it's really people are only really there to hear about
Mm.
from the men. That was
But I think
she was getting very frustrated in that traffic jam at the time. It was
given
all coming
and
out.
we didn't get this from the Salt Lake Trib in time, but there's been a Salt Lake
Mm,
Tribune article that's just come out about the name
mm,
Mormon and how that conversation is still going on about, do we keep the
mm,
name Mormon? No, Russell M.
mm,
Nelson doesn't like it. So I think we're going to
yeah.
get more talk about that at this general conference
Mm,
about the name of the church. He might double down. And
mm,
that could be a way of responding to the secret lies of Mormon wives. They could say, some in the media like to use the name Mormon
mm,
still, clearly referring to that.
mm,
But ultimately, we just know that they're getting really, yeah, they're just getting really uptight and paranoid about something that doesn't really matter, which is
Well,
the name
so they
Mormon.
to give them their ways, call yourself Nemo the Latter-day Saint. They'll love that. Respect his wishes.
No. Anyway, right, cool. So, any final thoughts, Peter? It's only a quick one tonight.
Yeah, no, I know. No, just interesting times. I think there's always this tension between what we know they are probably going to say, which will make most things worse in
Hmm.
reality, as it usually does, But then you always have this other side. I did with Latter Day Digest sort of last time round a prediction show of what they should say to save the church, and that's a whole thing. And that difference, the vast chasm between what we know they could say to actually encourage people to truly lift them up, to help the people who are about to leave choose to remain. There are so many things they could say and do, but they will never know what they are because they're not clearly receiving revelations from actual Jesus. And they refuse to listen to the people who left, who could just tell them. We can tell them how to save yourselves. So, unfortunately, this is going to be another kind of line on the church-wide suicide note of self-destruction. And the more Oakes takes power, the more that is going to accelerate,
Mhm.
as it already has under his influence. And it's just a tragedy. It's the loss of a community, and it means that over and over again, your children are not going to grow up in this church. Your ward will close down. There will be no one there to look after you in your old age, even though you looked after generations of elderly Mormons in their old age. That whole social contract is being broken on the local level. We're living it, we're watching it happen here, and people are all around the world. But it's not the world's fault. It is these leaders self-destructing and just ignoring all the great strengths that are there in the best of Mormonism, in the best of the people, in some amazing scriptures that they could win the 21st century with, but are just small plug for my next episode, but are just they don't have it in their heads. Sadly, Hugh Nibley's prediction in his Leaders and Managers speech has exactly come true, that drones and managers and yes men have taken over the whole church, and they don't have the skills, the energy, or the imagination to really lead it into the future. And we're just watching this crash and burn. And there's almost no hope for it
And
now,
we'll be here to
particularly with these
report on
leaders.
it every
Yeah.
droning talk of the way. Tom
But we'll
Trails just
make it
put
fun.
a nice just sent in a nice super chat. Thank you very much, Tom. Suggesting people jump over to the donor box and support what I do. That would be great. And I just want to say on a personal note, thank you to Tom Trails for their email, and thank you to everyone again that emailed. But Tom Trails, your email specifically was included in my printout rather than sent electronically to my state president, and was specifically referenced in my defense because it was a very powerful email. So thank you very much, Tom, for sending that over. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. So thank you very much,
Let the
everyone.
fun begin.
Yeah,
Here we go, everyone.
I think it's going to be a long weekend. I think I'm going to find it as tiring as ever, but with your support and with you guys watching and with you people to chat to, it will be bearable. No, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to have a good time. I enjoy watching conference. I enjoy analyzing it. So, yeah, it's going to be good. But I do have a bit of a problem, and this is where you can all help me. So, because I've been so busy recently, getting kicked out of my childhood religion and all that sort of thing, I have not been able to find a guest for one of the slots for the general conference review show. Now, Peter is doing the first session of conference, as is traditional. He's doing the last session of conference, as is traditional. We've got our viewers special on the Saturday evening, where viewers who aren't necessarily podcasters themselves will come on and talk. So that's great. That is as is traditional. Sunday morning is covered. So what's left? Saturday afternoon. Unless you want to see Peter Bleakley again, which I know some of you would love and some of you
Save
would absolutely
yourselves.
not. Unless you want to see him, let me know in the comments who you think I should invite to come and be on the show. Now, Mormonish aren't available. They're too busy doing other fun stuff. What could be more fun than sitting down and watching a session of conference with me? But who do you think should come on? Put your suggestions in the comments below or in the live chat. I'll be checking both. And let me know, and we'll see if they're available at short notice, shall we? Or otherwise, we get more Peter Bleakley, which is fine, But the poor guy will probably want some sleep at some point, because not everyone wants to do what I do, which is watch all 5 sessions of conference back to back with minimal sleep and minimal breaks. So let me know what your thoughts are. I'm not having Keir Starmer on, the Prime Minister of
Or
the
his
United Kingdom,
sausage.
or his sausage. So yeah, cool. Right. Thanks, everyone. You chat away about who you think should come on, and you might see them tomorrow. Take care, everybody. I will see you in about 24 hours. Make sure to hit the like button on your way out. Bye.